Well, hello there. Welcome to another episode of the Music Ally Focus podcast with me, Music Ally's editor, Joe Sparrow. And look who is joining me. Goodness, it's Music Ally's COO, Patrick Ross. Hello, Patrick.
Hey, Joe. Thanks. Great to be here today.
And thank you for using your radio voice when replying to me there. Now, Patrick, we wanted to have a chat today about the music industry landscape. It's obviously of no surprise to anybody who reads the Music Ally Bulletin or anyone who works in the music industry that it is a quickly shifting landscape. And of course, you are the COO of Music Ally, which is Chief
Operating
Officer. That's correct, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you're in touch with a lot of people in the industry, and particularly in the sense of talking about training, upskilling, personal development and things like that, which it sounds like is becoming more important than ever before in the music industry. When you talk to people, are they saying about the structural changes that they're seeing and how that actually sort of pans out in terms of real impacts on people?
Yeah, I mean, real impact on people, first and foremost, is friends. I've been around long enough to have enough folks that I would consider friends, and I think that works both ways. But, people talk, and people talk when they're unhappy at companies. People talk when they've left a company, whether by choice or not by choice. And sitting where we sit at Music Ally, we get the benefit of when people are out there looking and maybe in between roles, they do come see us because we're, friendly folks and always willing to bend an ear to listen.
And if you didn't know this, folks, Music Ally's office is on a boat in London. So people are very keen to come and see the boat and hang out on the boat. So, I mean, look, it's no secret that the music industry is undergoing a sort of period of shrinkage, if you like. The major companies, however you want to slice them up, have all reduced the headcount, which is the nice way of saying laying people off between, I would say on average, between 10 and 25% over the last few years. But what that means is a lot of very skilled people with very desirable skills are sort of moving around, but that doesn't mean that you just fall into another role as it may have done a few years ago. So what's the change that they're saying from that perspective?
So when I first tried to get into this here music industry of ours, I was graduating from university in the beloved Nashville, Tennessee at Belmont University. And at that time, we were seeing a big shift. It was the era of Napster. I started my first day at uni wearing a Napster t-shirt, and one of my teachers went, "Boy, what are you doing wearing that t-shirt? You know that's why you're not going to find a job." And it turns out he was more correct than I would have liked to believe. And one of the reasons I relocated to London was because there were no jobs at the time. And it was another one of these times, technology sort of causing a shift, and everybody was trying to figure out where we were going to go next. I think we all know what happened. We went into the download era, into the streaming era where we found ourselves. But a lot of that for me personally was I had to figure out what my skill set was. And coming out and telling folks that I've got a music business degree was all well and good for the paper that it was printed on. But there's a big focus on what can you do? So, trying to get my first job at Network Records here in London with some wonderful folks, but at the time, once again, not expanding, if anything, having to cut costs. The big question to me is, what can you do? And I could quote on, what I had on paper that I'd learned, but it was skills. It was, practical knowledge that I could put into place. And for me at the time, a lot of that came from the things I taught myself. I work with a lot of students and have the ability to do so here at Music Ally, coming, showing me their CVs and, hey, what do you think? What looks good about my CV? And I go, focus on the skills. Let me know what you can do. And so I think skills are more important than ever, always have been, but certainly right now, given the current climate, I think that there's going to be more and more of a focus on this, especially for individuals, if not companies. Hopefully companies see this as well. But yeah, having certifiable skills, having these sort of things that you can actually do and showcase that you can do well, really help you to get new jobs, start your own company like I had to do when no one was hiring, and actually get out there and hustle in this music industry of ours and differentiate yourself.
I mean, that's one of those sort of unspoken truths of the music industry, isn't it? That you can end up, just through the nature of the work, being highly skilled in one very specific area, and then maybe for an external reason you're looking for work, and maybe you realize that it was so highly specific, you don't have the breadth to perhaps segue into something else, or you just don't know how to. And then that's compounded by the sort of the historic problem in the music industry where people don't really like to put their hand up and say, hey, I don't know that, which is something that I think we've all faced and all feel, because it is a sort of environment where you don't want to say, oh, I don't know. And the reason we publish all the stuff we publish at Music Ally is to try and educate people and get them beyond that. But, it's easy to say to get skills, right, and to develop skills, but when you suddenly need them, it's suddenly highlighted to you perhaps how niched you are.
Niched indeed. And a lot of the folks that I'm sort of alluding to have maybe been lost inside of a big organization for a number of years and been able to have a career within that particular organization, but then they find themselves coming out going, nobody knows who I am outside of, and even if you've been in an organization long enough, maybe you moved up to the top floor, hidden in some back room, nobody even knew who I am inside of this company. And there's a big need to actually step out into the world outside of the safety of the organization you found yourself in and look around and go, how do I differentiate myself? And now you're looking at, how do I evolve and actually find myself a role, and perhaps a new role, a new kind of role in what is an ever evolving music industry that is very much at the whim of technology.
I mean, that is scary, right? Again, that's something that people in the music industry might feel a little bit uncomfortable acknowledging, but this can be a worrying moment for people like. So again, it's easy to say, hey, pull up your socks and get on with it. But what is a good way to get started? Because it can sometimes, you're facing the situation where you leave a business, you've got quite narrow skills perhaps, but very deep, narrow skills. So what's the way forward from that? What are people telling you?
For myself, as I've kind of alluded to, it was going out and picking up some digital skills, actually speaking to people at the label that I was at, friends in the industry or people that were helping to support me, and asking, what are the things that you're looking for that maybe you find lacking in most of the folks that you're trying to. One of my favorite examples is a wonderful chap, Mr. Sam Williams, who Joe, we actually had a beer with, I believe, in London at one point.
Yes,
we did. And Sam came, he was in some bands in Wales, working with me eventually, and how he got the job was came to us for a digital marketing role. And, we're looking, drowning in CVs with all sorts of people saying what they do, what they don't do. And this fella comes in and he goes, look, you've looked at my CV. I don't have a lot of experience. Yeah, I've been in some bands. That was a bit of a nightmare. But what I did is I looked around at what kind of skills are needed to make it in digital marketing. And this guy had gone out and he had taught himself how to use Photoshop, how to use the Adobe suite, how to book Instagram, Facebook ads. He basically went out and taught himself the skills. So took courses to be able to know all these things, and came in real honest to us. And it was super refreshing because we were actually looking at all of these different candidates, some, very qualified, maybe some with certain skill sets or certain experience that would be harder to untrain and retrain them in the ways we wanted. But this guy was coming in and had actually shown that he had taken the time to learn in his own time and actually craft a CV that was based on learning that he had done to actually target himself at this role. And I think that is still really important. Maybe what we're also looking at here is a more decentralized music industry. And there's a lot of signs that point to that. And we're seeing more of these sole traders. We're seeing a lot more, certainly, agencies coming in the digital marketing space. And these folks, I think, need very specialized training. And that is part of what we do at Music Ally Pro, part of why we built this platform. The whole concept and the whole idea was to stay ahead of the curve and to help people actually learn, gain, and have the skills that they're going to need to whatever it is they're trying to do, whether it's get that job or get their own set of clients and start their own little agency or be a one-man band, to be able to do that and have the skills that it takes, and then keep those up to date by continuing to take in that kind of information.
So I will let you do your unsubtle plug of Music Ally Pro a little more in a second. But the key thing you mentioned there is about the decentralization of the music industry, which, again, is a trend you're seeing across a lot of digital industries. And that is also something which can feel imposing. But what you're saying is that actually if you have faith in yourself and you understand where you've got to, you can actually change direction and flesh out the skills that you have with new skills.
Very much so. For some folks, that can seem terrifying, but some people go out in that world and realize that being your own boss, yeah, there's the idea of having to go and win clients, keep clients, and do the work, which is part of it. But it can also be extremely rewarding. And I think that this idea of a more decentralized music industry where we're able to pick the partners. I mean, we've got so many options for distribution these days. We have so many options for marketing these days that you can really handcraft and pick a team. And I think that the music industry, if it reflects the way music is made and what we love about music, I think that it matches more. But I think what we love about some of this is that hustle of how people came out and fought against the odds, turned left when they needed to, turned right, made those changes in direction, and carried on. And I think that we can mirror that as a music industry and better support the creators that we work with.
That's actually interesting because at the moment we're at Music Ally in the period of building up to the Music Ally Marketing Awards, which ties into the Campaign of the Year publication. And so at the moment we're reading through 250 entries to those awards and the Campaign of the Year thing, and the standard this year is incredibly high. And the one thing I've noticed is that more than any other year in the past, we ask everyone who enters to name all the partners they work with, and there's so many third parties that have been working on these campaigns, and they're all quite granular. So you've got people collaborating with a team who are just existing to do, for example, digital merchandise in Roblox. That's one team. And then they also have this other team over here who are working to build a virtual space or virtual experience, a treasure hunt in a Discord server or something like that. And it all comes together as a sort of mosaic to build the campaign. And yet they're using these fairly small but highly skilled and enthusiastic teams around that to do that. And I think that was the thing which really sat with me this year, which was this idea of bringing in lots of different partners and having the artist team, whether that's a label or a manager or whatever at the center, pulling those levers and saying, right, bring in these people, we build the concept, we put them together, and we make the magic happen. And that, to me, felt like a little bit of a sort of breakthrough moment. And I presume a lot of these people, by the way, used to be working in major companies and have left and started their own businesses, and now they're getting business back in from the industry again. So there's obviously something happening here in terms of not only the workforce, but also the way that they are being used by artist teams to build successful campaigns.
It is quite actually exciting to see the numbers of small companies. And one of the stats that I keep quoting to people that our friend Simon Scott from Push Entertainment, actually, I'll give him credit for this, but Sherry Hugh did Water and Music, did a survey recently to do with analytics platforms. And one of the things that stood out was looking at the people surveyed, the companies surveyed, the amount of them that were 10 or under employees. Some of this trend of what we're seeing was way higher than folks from big companies. And it's just pointing to the fact that, yeah, they're out there. There's lots and lots of small companies that are nimble, that you can bring in to do a very specific job. And again, when we're talking about music, which is, very subjective, very genre specific, very audience specific, that we do have more options, that we don't think there is one size fits all. Not that there ever was one size fits all. I mean, anybody that's worked in a big company will certainly know, depending on the artist that you work with, the PR team that you bring on, the specialized marketing, the creative is going to be there to service that artist. So we've always done this. But I just think that we're in an era now where I suppose that, the industry itself is catching up, and we're able to look for creativity, niche creativity that really fits with the artist, the campaign, the music that is actually being promoted commercially.
Okay, so we've got this opportunity then, if you look at it from that perspective, where people can change direction, they can gather new skills, they can make themselves into nimble little companies that are supplying needs that are probably aligned with what they are most interested in, which brings us to training and upskilling and using bespoke tools to achieve that. So I think this is the point where you can start telling us about Music Ally Pro and what that's designed for and what that actually does.
So yeah, for a while, a good 10 years, I had the pleasure of being at a company called AWOL. Saw it through a lot of different incarnations, from just a few of us, releasing music from a record studio in St. John's Wood, to being bought by a much bigger company, working with big legacy artists, as well as a bunch of developing artists. And as we started building out the platform, we realized that if we had better educated clients with better skills, they'd be able to perform better, make better use of our services. And that's kind of how I joined Music Ally. And I've sort of been able to see a bit of that dream fulfilled in what we've launched with Music Ally Pro, which begs the question, what is a pro? And certainly it's what you think of traditionally as a professional in the music industry. But also, I hope and I do feel like we're seeing a world where a pro means a lot more things. It may actually mean, a self managed artist that has a knack for business and actually wants to get down into the details of the digital marketing. I mean, certainly they're content creating, but maybe they actually want to see to the end point of promoting it through advertising. Maybe they've got an idea of what kind of influencers they're wanting to work with. And we're really hoping that this platform is moving with the market to not only certainly serve folks at big companies who do want to upskill an entire team, but also posing the question, does this also open up to a new kind of professional? And are we actually seeing a future where artists will have more ownership of that, or be able to pick teams or work with people that will upskill themselves? We're hoping that the content that we've been creating and the idea behind this platform of actually staying ahead of the curve, and they're actually putting that into a format and a place where people can access up-to-date skills, up-to-date information, knowledge on what they need to be doing to empower folks to drive their performance forward. As a friend of mine, one more quote from a guy, Mr. Trond Torrens in Norway, who said, the power of the music industry has always been the people. And as much as technology has always been a big part of the music industry, the people are always going to be core. The musicians themselves are certainly core, the artists themselves, but also the people working on it. And what we feel like is we're trying to take professionals in the music industry, whoever they may be, and give them the ability to be more pro and to actually ask the questions that they may be afraid to ask.
That is the interesting thing. Your question there about what is a pro now. I mean, it's clear, isn't it? That's a component of the change between the past and the present. In the past, to do simple things like releasing records, releasing music, you had to engage with a huge company, but to do everything else as well. But when you mention things like doing influencer marketing or setting up something in the metaverse, it can sometimes sound like these things are still something where you have to go and engage with a major company to do it. But actually, what we're seeing is that those are really in the hands of anybody. Anybody can kick off one of those campaigns. Anybody can build something in Discord now, maybe just with one or two people as partners. That speaks a lot to the nature of the D2C nature of the business now. Everybody is in control. Therefore, everyone is a professional. And everyone can think of themselves as that. And then your other point as to it being a human business is that, well, that's the same thing, isn't it? That all these new platforms and this technology, all it does really is elevate the decision-making and the creativity and the thoughtfulness of the humans at the center of it all.
Yes, indeed.
And so, give us the hardest sell then, Music Ally Pro. What are the... People can go to Music Ally Pro, which is, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick, but pro.musically.com. But there's a bunch of features there that are designed to not only educate them and upskill them, but to give them other insight as well. So give us a quick run through there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch in there. I've kind of alluded to the video content. So we've got our quick insight videos that are quick insights into how to do something now, much more practical, things that we've either spent the time to figure out because we've done it or asked somebody that knows better than us. We've got our pro skills that are, if you got the time, much longer to really deep dive into a topic. Like I was speaking to a group of a cohort that we're working with right now of getting into the meta advertising ecosystem. Tomorrow I'm going to talk to them about Google advertising and how to use all these things, all these tools for the power of promoting music. And then inspiration, we also find to be a big thing. And, inspiration can often be drawn from what other people are doing. So we've got our campaign database, pulling from all the campaigns that are submitted to us. But one of the things that we've also put into this platform, there's some real folks, real humans sitting here on this boat with me that are constantly populating this thing. And of course, we're taking the things that we hear, the things that we spot. We're taking things that we think are really good, because we realized that we spend all of our time tracking this, and we had oodles of sheets tracking activations and campaigns that we liked. And that also allows us to follow something from, when a social media profile goes dark to when they announce something, the pre-save. And we can also kind of point out to maybe what doesn't work sometimes, which is you can equally learn from. There's, of course, we've got a chat bot in there that you can go straight in 24 hours a day when we're asleep. But otherwise, you can also AMA, Ask Music Ally anything. It should have another A, but we didn't like that. And actually draw on the experience of our team. And if we don't have the answer to hand, we're going to go find it. And the idea of this is so
you can actually, like, if someone's got a question, you will actually go and find the answer and let them know. So if they are using the word oodles as a KPI and they want a more specific KPI, maybe you can help them with that.
Yes, we have several different terms for oodles, but yes, correct.
Yes, good to know. And I want to just talk about the campaign database for a moment, because we did talk a minute ago about the Campaigns of the Year report, which is coming soon, folks. But the campaigns database is where all the campaigns that have been monitored by Music Ally and an enormous amount of the ones that have been submitted to the Campaigns of the Year report and for the awards, that's where they go to live and act as a sort of I was going to beat around the bush and say, you can go and be inspired, but you can just go and like rip off someone else's great campaign, right?
Change a few of the words and make sure you don't get caught for plagiarism. But
they can go there, they can find campaigns that have worked well for other artists that are like them, and they can be inspired by them.
Yeah, inspired. And like I say, the other part of the campaign database as well, of course, all the ones you've mentioned, but also the stuff they're called campaign tracking. So you can look them up on there. And these are things that our team is tracking and tracking it from point A to, whenever it finishes. We keep these things updated, keep adding in more and more examples as long as the campaign may go on. We've also got our weekly roundups. We're looking at activations that are just little bits of inspiration. And if you're not completely convinced, go sign up for a free account. We're trying to put enough featured free content out there for people to get a taste. And we're always happy to give people demos. It's evolving, much like our knowledge is evolving.
Well, that is the great thing about the music industry, which is that if you have an idea and you dedicate yourself to it, it is an industry where anybody can break in. There are no barriers. And that is something which is really remarkable, because not a lot of industries are like that have global reach and that are creative and that are people industries as well. So I guess with that in mind, you can go and visit pro.musically.com and dig around and see what's there for you. And it could spark you off on a brand new career path. Thank you, Patrick. If you found that useful, well, first of all, go and check out Music Ally Pro. Links are beneath this podcast. But do share the podcast on with someone else who you think will find it useful. And if you'd like to get in touch, I'd love to hear from you. That's joe@musically.com. But I guess you can always hit Patrick up with an email as well.
Yeah, Patrick@musically.com. And, Joe said if you find it useful, that's fantastic. But at the same time, if you don't find it useful, we'd also like to hear that. Again, we've got a smiley face in our logo for a reason. We're here for the change. And we would love feedback, because we're really just trying to, we're very fortunate to sit where we do. And we thank you to everyone listening, everyone that's a part of this extended Music Ally global family. And we're excited about the future, as we've always tried to be.
Just one big happy family, folks. So yes, go try out Music Ally Pro. Email Patrick, tell him what you think, and he will definitely send you a happy email in response. And if you're lucky, he will record a bespoke rap. Isn't that right, Patrick?
Only on birthdays. I only do my birthday raps for Joe Sparrow when I'm finding that the podcast time is getting narrow. So if I don't have a beat, I just flow like I can. And then I say to people, hey, look, Joe is the man, but he's based in Berlin, not in our London boat. And that's not something that I would like to gloat about, actually. Keeping him a little bit away from me makes my life better with sanity. But when I do see him, we hang out and we chill out long, because I think that's the end of this made up song. But that's why I didn't get the career in the music industry on the artist side.
I honestly thought we might have got through the whole podcast without you rapping, and yet I should have known better. Thank you, Patrick. Great to speak to you. And if you would like more non-wrapped information delivered to you, we have a free weekly email called The Knowledge, which rounds up bits and pieces of all the best analysis, news, marketing insight, and skills from Music Ally, written in prose and bullet points, not rap. So sign up and impress your boss and friends. Links are in the description as always. Thank you for listening. I've been Joe Sparrow. Patrick has been Patrick. Thank you, Patrick. And until next time, everyone, farewell.
Fare thee well.